that help?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you tonight. As she said, I'm Rick Howard. I am a certified law of attraction practitioner. And turn on my clicker first, I guess. To tell you a little bit more about who I am, as Beth mentioned, I've worked as a marketing coach for an accounting and tax school that's based out of Salt Lake City, Utah for the past 11 years. And I bring that up because that's where I was introduced to the law of attraction and got into that type of coaching. But over that time, I've worked with CPAs that have been doing accounting for 20 years. I've worked with accountants, professional bookkeepers, tax preparers, at all different levels of experience and training. And what happened was we realized we had people that didn't lack in training, they didn't lack in experience, they didn't lack in certifications, but they were still struggling to build their practices. And what we realized is that the biggest factor is their belief system. They had gone through thinking the whole time that I'm not a good marketer, it's too hard to go out there and talk to people, I'm an introvert, so I don't like doing that, I can't build my business. So they had this mindset that it was too hard, they couldn't do it, and it became their belief system. Well, eventually we brought in a life coach to work with us as coaches because we wanted to go through his process and see if we could pull some of the things that he did to implement in our own coaching. And so that's where I got introduced to the law of attraction, and that really got me interested in the law of attraction to where I really studied it more and became a law of attraction practitioner a few years back. I work with TBT coaching, and that's myself and my best friend Scott McKinley and his wife Jen McKinley. And we all sort of went through this process together. In fact, it was Scott that really got into the law of attraction first and introduced us to it. But anyway, so I've done that for the last few years. I am single, but I have 2 kids. These are them, Sam and Bella. They're at home right now. They keep me busy. But that's probably more than you're going to want to know about me, so I'm just going to delve right into it. The reason that I'm here tonight, what I want to talk to you about is paradigms. We're going to talk about what paradigms are. There's both good and bad paradigms, so we'll talk about how to know when it's time to shift out of a bad paradigm to get into a good one. There's a lot of tools that we have as coaches to utilize to help people make that shift. But I don't have enough time to go through a lot of them, so I'm going to cover a couple of them for you tonight. And this is all about beginning the process of creating the new you. So, just to jump right into it, you all know this is the iPhone. The iPhone came out in 2007, right? But I want you to think back before the iPhone. What were cell phones to us before the iPhone came out? It was just basically for talking and a little texting, right? That's the only real reason we had a cell phone, was to talk and to text people with. But then the iPhone came out, and they changed our whole perception of what an iPhone is. It's not just something to talk to and text to people on. It's a computer, it's a camera, it's a video recorder, it's a calendar. It has so many more purposes for us. Apple came along and changed the paradigm of what a cell phone is. They changed the whole world's perspective as to what a cell phone is, right? Now, every year since then, they've brought out another model of the iPhone. Why do I need a new version of the iPhone every single year? Sorry? Why do they keep making them then?
Faster, better, stronger.
Faster, so they're just making improvements on it, right? They're making improvements, making it better, just like we should do for ourselves, right? Make improvements. But one thing I want to point out, they just announced the iPhone 10 a month or so ago. It's due to be released in another month or 2. How much like the original iPhone does the iPhone 10 look? It's completely different, right? So, a couple things to point out. One of the big things to iPhone users over the years, at least in the minds of Apple, was the home screen, or the home button. You can see there's no home button on the iPhone 10. They've done away with it. On the iPhone 7 last year, they did away with the headphone jack. A lot of people made a big fuss about that. But now other phones are coming out without the headphone jack. They continue to change our perception of what a cell phone is. Okay? So what is a paradigm? It's a Greek word meaning to show side by side. It's scientifically used to mean a model or a theory, but for our purposes, it's an assumption or a frame of reference that we use. It's how we see the world. It's where our attitudes and behaviors are created from. We generally pick them up as we're growing up as children from our parents, from our close family members, our close friends. Even if you haven't read the book, most people are familiar with Stephen Covey and his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Have anybody read this? Okay, a few of you. So you'll know that he talks about paradigms in the book. And he introduces them by telling a story about a college professor when he was at the Harvard Business School. And the professor passed out a picture. Anybody seen this picture before? Most of us have seen that?
Yeah.
So he passes the picture out, and he tells the class, look, I want you to look the picture over. I want you to really study it. In a couple minutes, I'm going to pick a couple people to describe this picture to me. So he gave him a couple minutes, and he got somebody over on the left-hand side of the class. He said, all right, describe the picture. And how do you think they described it? Yeah, it's a young, pretty woman looking back over her shoulder. She's got dark curly hair, pearl necklace. She's got maybe a fur coat or shawl on or something like that, some kind of cap on her head. It's okay, great. He's like, stay standing. Now he picked somebody over on the right side of the room. Now, unbeknownst to them, he'd given them a different picture. Everybody on the left side of the room, he gave the first picture to. Everybody on the right side of the room, he gave this picture to, but they don't know that. So he asked that person to describe the room, the picture. Now, how do you think they described it?
A witch.
A witch. An older woman looking down, dark pierced lips, probably has lipstick on, has some kind of scarf or something over her head. Again, she has some kind of fur coat or something over her shoulders. She says, wait a minute, so you're saying this person's wrong. It's not a young woman, it's an old woman. That person said, yes, definitely an old woman. So he says, and you're saying this person's wrong. Like, oh yeah, no, there's no way, that's a young woman. He says, okay, great. Then he shows them this picture. And as we can see, the picture is both a young woman and an old woman. Can everybody see both pictures in there? So the point he was making to them is that we create beliefs based off of information that we're given. Part of the class was given information to where they drew the conclusion that it was a young woman. The other part of the class got information that gave them perception it was an older woman. That's how our beliefs are created, these paradigms, by information that we're given from other people. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the paradigms that I've had in my life. First, one of the paradigms, I always felt like life was always going to be a struggle. My dad always worked full-time jobs, as well as my mother, who was a school teacher, 6th grade teacher. They'd come home, they were always worn out. My mom would come home from school and immediately start cooking dinner for 5 kids and a husband. And that was a paradigm that I lived by, was life was always going to be a struggle. Good things happen, but they happen to other people. They don't ever happen, good stuff, I don't ever win things, or, we got to go on some trips here and there, but I never got to go on these nice fancy vacations, stuff like that. It happens, but to other people. You're going to work hard your whole life, but money's always going to be a burden. You're always going to be living paycheck to paycheck. You're always going to be struggling to pay your bills. That's just how it was. And all that work that you're doing to make money, you're still not able to make the type of money that you want to make to be able to afford the things that you want to buy with it. These are some of the perceptions, some of the paradigms that I had in my life. You have to go to school and get to college and get a degree to be successful. Is that true?
No.
I sure thought it was. In my teens and early 20s, and maybe even in my 30s, that's how I thought life was. You had to go to school and get a degree to be successful. And then the reason I brought up Pearl Jam before and the introduction is because they're my favorite band and I like talking about them. So one of the paradigms that I lived by was I didn't ever get to see them up close. I was up in the nosebleeds all the time. That was my story. Do you relate to any of these, anybody? Some of them are pretty relatable, right? So can anybody share with me some of the paradigms that you've lived your life by? Yeah, what's your name?
Saturday.
Sorry, say that again.
Saturday?
Sape?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like I won't be able to do the traveling that I want to do. I guess is that a paradigm?
Yeah, absolutely. So what gives you that thought?
Maybe it's growing up with my mom, we like never did vacations, we never did trips, and she's always like, I can't afford it.
So you've picked that up and now you start thinking that way, right? That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Yeah.
Men are needy.
Well, okay, good. You raise your hand?
Women aren't tall enough, short enough, old enough, thin enough, brilliant enough to do the men's job. And I came out of that framework, having been a 60s kid, and it was Mrs. whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, those were factually things. Women did not advance, they didn't get scholarships and college, and things like that.
But has that paradigm started to shift?
Teensy bit.
Teensy bit, right? I think we'd all like to see it do more, right? But it's starting to shift. So thank you for sharing those. You got another one?
Yeah, I will always have debt.
I will always have debt. Yeah, that's a good one. That's probably one I could add on my list too, right?
All of the above.
Yeah, all the above. Right. So these are all things, and like I said, there's good ones and there are bad ones. And here's the thing is that most of the paradigms, not the Pearl Jam one, but most of the paradigms that I've lived my life by came from my parents. That wasn't because they were being bad parents or being mean. Where do you think they got it from? Their parents. And where did they get it from? Their parents. It's just this ongoing cycle. And so we have to make a shift at some point. So the good thing about all this is that a paradigm is just a belief, and a belief is just a thought. And we are in control of our thoughts. Anybody read Think and Grow Rich? Great book, right? So in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about how important our thoughts are. And whether they're positive or negative, our dominant thoughts are what attract people and circumstances and things into our life. And so if we see areas in our life where we're attracting negative circumstances, if we're attracting negative people, that tells us that there needs to be a shift. Right? So, how do we do that? How do we make the shift? So, this has been something that's been taught, discussed about for almost 100 years, if not more. But Napoleon Hill started his research for Think and Grow Rich back in the 20s. Here in Psycho-Cybernetics, you have a psychologist that's talking about it. Anybody read The Secret or seen the video?
Yeah.
Some people think that's a little hippy-dippy. But the overall theme behind all of these books is thoughts become things, which TBT coaching, thoughts become things. That whole thoughts become things comes from this book, The Law of Attraction, The Science of Attracting More of What You Want and Less of What You Don't, by a gentleman named Michael O'Shea. These are books as a Law of Attraction coach that I have on my shelf and that I regularly recommend to other people. The cool thing is, we can do this, we can make changes, we can make shifts in any area of our life. It can be our finances, where we just feel like we're always going to be in debt. We're never going to have enough money to buy things that we want. It can be your health, if you're always feeling like I'm always getting sick. Relationships, I can never find the right type of person to be with. I see people going on trips and posting pictures on Facebook all the time, but why can't I go on some of those trips every once in a while? I hate work. I don't like the people I work with. My boss is a jerk. Anybody relate to that one? Anybody ever had a jerk for a boss? So can you relate to these things? Maybe you're a business owner and your constant thought is whatever I do, whatever I try, I just can't build my business like I want it to. So we can make changes in any area of our life. And there's a lot of tools to help you do that. But I've passed out a couple sheets for everybody. The top one is what's called a clarity through contrast sheet. You'll see it's basically just a T-square, right? This is the first tool that we use. And so what we want to do first is we have to pick the area that we want to focus on to make improvements. And you can do this for multiple areas. You would just do a different clarity through contrast for each area. But the way you do this is you're going to, on the left-hand side, list the contrast, the things about that area in your life that you can't stand. So you want to be specific, and you want to make that list as long as possible. Okay? So I'm going to give some examples of this in just a minute, like right now. So this one here, if you're that business owner that your thought is always, where are all the clients? I can't find the clients that I want. Or you're the woman in the middle, I can't stand that I don't have confidence to be able to go out and meet new people. Or you're the person who's, I never have enough money. I don't have the money that I want and need to do things and buy things that I want to do. So you make this list depending on what area you're focusing on as long as possible, listing out the things that you can't stand about that area. Now, as a law of attraction coach, it's important for me to say this. This is the only time that I will ever coach somebody to focus on the negative. Because it's much easier typically if I ask somebody, what is it that you really want in this aspect of your life? It's generally a lot easier for them to tell me what they don't want than what it is that they do want. So we gain clarity by listing all of the things that we don't want and letting that show us what it is we actually want. So now, on the right-hand side, we're going to list all the must-haves. So if finances is the thing, and I put on the left-hand side, I can't stand the fact that I pay my bills late all the time. Then what might I put on the right-hand side? Yeah, I have abundance of money to be able to pay my bills on time or early. Perfect. So you use what's on the left to help determine what goes on the right. Again, you want to be specific, and you want to use negative words. And what I mean by that, in that same example, I don't want to say something like, I want an abundance amount of money so that I'm not paying my bills late. Our focus is still on paying bills late, right? So we want to stay away from focusing on negative words or thoughts. So instead, I want an abundance of money to be able to pay my bills on time or early. So now, instead of, I don't have enough clients, it becomes, I want an abundance of clients. Instead of, I don't have any confidence, I want an abundance of confidence to be able to go out and introduce myself and meet new people and begin new relationships. Instead of, I don't have enough money, it's I have an abundance of money to be able to pay my bills on time or early, or to go do things that I want to do, or buy things that I want to do. Is this all making sense? Now, one thing that I'll mention here is, and write this down because this is an important phrase, I'm in the process of. If what I'm working on is my weight, I can't look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm grateful that I'm at my ideal weight, because I'm not. I'm telling myself a lie, and subconsciously I know that I'm not at my ideal weight. So that's where this phrase comes in. I can instead say, I'm in the process of reaching my ideal weight. Now the focus is all on that positive aspect of reaching that ideal weight that I want to be at. Make sense? All right, so along with these books, there's one other one that I like, which is The Magic. So Rhonda Byrne, who wrote The Secret, several years later wrote The Magic. And if there were two that I would say have had the most impact on me, it's those two, The Law of Attraction and The Magic. Now, the magic's not a bunch of witchcraft and voodoo stuff. It's all about gratitude. Gratitude is the magic pixie dust. It's the secret to all of this. She talks about how gratitude is riches and complaints about poverty. So the more you find to be grateful for, the more you're going to attract to be grateful for. And the more you complain about things, the more things you're going to attract to have to complain about. That's what this whole book is about. But it's cool because you don't just read right through it. It's a 28-day practice. So each day you read a chapter, and she focuses on a different principle to help you create the habit of focusing on gratitude. And she'll give you a little exercise to do on most days. And so it just helps you build up that habit of focusing on gratitude. And then an important part of it is keeping a daily journal. And all that's really about is you want to acknowledge the abundance that is coming into your life. So if I was journaling today and health was the thing that I was focusing on to improve, I might write down in my journal for today, I woke up feeling great. I was able to go work out for 30 minutes, which helped me feel good for the rest of the day. I had a really healthy breakfast and lunch. So I'm gonna put things in my journal that help me acknowledge the abundance that I am getting on a daily basis. And now I can focus more easily on being grateful for those things, which is gonna help me attract more things to be grateful for. So it's just this cycle. So going back to my paradigms, life is meant to be a struggle, good things don't happen to me. Going to college and getting a degree to be successful, I got caught up in the retail world. I was a department store department manager for years. I was young and single, making really good money, and got sucked into it and didn't finish college. And that worried me for a long time. Now, I'm a business owner. I'm a successful coach. And so that's a paradigm that I've been able to make a shift. And I could talk more about any of these, but which one do you think I really want to talk about? Pearl Jam, because it's Pearl Jam. So I can remember vividly being in the MGM Grand Casino arena in Las Vegas, Nevada with my best friend Scott. This is, I don't know how many years ago, but it was a while ago. We had probably been to 6 or 7 Pearl Jam shows by this point. And we're sitting up in the nosebleeds, and I remember sitting there with him, watching all these people down on the floor, right in front of the stage, right up on the rail, and just talking to each other, saying, how do people get down there? Why are we not down there? How come we're always up here? And that was our story. That was our paradigm, was that when we go to Pearl Jam shows, we see them from way far away. And that happened over the next several concerts that we went to as well. But as we learned to utilize the law of attraction and start making some shifts, something happened. This is in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2013. That's me, that's Scott, that's Michael Creedy. He's the guitarist for Pearl Jam. That's the stage right there. You can see there's nobody in front of us. That is in Spokane, Washington, later that year. That is in Hampton, Virginia. You can see there's no one between us and that stage back there. This is us in Columbia, South Carolina, taking a picture of everybody behind us as we're up front. This is in Mexico City. Now, I got sort of pushed out because we were taking the picture. I'm right back here. You can't really see me because of the light, but that's Scott and some of our friends that we've met through going to Pearl Jam shows. But by the way, there's over 62,000 people there, all behind us. And this is us last year at Wrigley Field, seeing them in Chicago. We changed our paradigm. Before, we told the story of always having to sit up high. Now, we know that wherever and whenever Pearl Jam plays, regardless of where they're at, we can be up front if we want to. We've been able to change the story that we tell. And here's the thing. The story you tell is the life you live. If you're not living the type of life you want, start telling a different story. So, again, beliefs are just thoughts. The problem is those bad beliefs, the bad paradigms that we live by, are the ones that we focus too much time and energy on. So we need to make that shift and start putting that focus and energy into things that will attract the things that we want in our life. So, what have we learned today? Well, we learned that paradigms are just beliefs. Beliefs are just thoughts that get too much focus and energy. We pick up those paradigms and beliefs by those who influenced us as kids and adolescents. Now, we get paradigms, we continue to add paradigms as we go along. But the main core ones, we typically pick up when we're young. If you look at different aspects in your life, and you can see that you're attracting the wrong type of people, the wrong type of circumstances, then you know that there needs to be a shift made. And so a couple of the tools that we talked about is getting clarity and focusing on daily gratitude. So at TBT Coaching, this is what we do. We coach people, and it doesn't matter, like I said, we've had a long experience working with business owners, but we wanted to teach people regardless of their background or who they were. So we started TBT Coaching to be able to help everybody gain that clarity of what they wanted to focus on, to identify the things that were limiting them, and help them start making that shift. We're happy to give everybody a free coaching session. If you have questions about this, I'm going to be sticking around a little while after the class. I'm happy to answer any questions. I also, with the clarity of contrast sheet, the other sheet that I passed out to you is an evaluation form. I do presentations like this fairly often. I always want to know how I can do better. So if you would, please take a few minutes and fill that out. Let me know what you liked, what you gained out of the presentation, and then what could have been done differently that might have brought some more value to you. But also, if you'd like to get together for a free coaching session, if you want to start this process of gaining some clarity and making a shift in certain areas, I'm happy to do that. And there's a spot on that evaluation sheet to let me know that you're interested in the free coaching session. Again, the story you tell is the life you live. It's time to make the shift and start living the life that you want. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time for coming out. Thank you, Dr. Sheriff.